everybody. Steve Whaley here with the Propane Education and Research Council for the next Propane Presents in the technology series. We're going to let everybody into the room here and give it about 20, maybe 30 seconds to get all 125 of you in here. We're thrilled at the turnout. Very, very pleased to have you. So just give us a minute to let everybody in. See the numbers growing. You guys are coming in. I appreciate that. All right, while everybody is coming into the room, we do want to thank you for participating in the Propane Presents Technology Series. This month is on Autogas, and we're going to be talking about well, you remember the movie with Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire, the Show Me the Money, okay? And so the Autogas funding opportunity announcements, where we can help show you where the money is. And we have two very special guests to help us do that. But just to let everybody know, we are recording this session. We won't be able to hear you, but you can hear me and the other panelists that will be going on here. So as you have questions, down at the bottom of your screen, you can go to the Q&A section and go ahead and type in your question now. Go ahead and type it in whenever you have the idea pop into your head. And we will be looking at those towards the end. And if I see one come up that's germane to the conversation at the very present, we'll go ahead and address it there as well. At the conclusion of this, we will have that recording available to all of you and located on propane.com, as well as emailing all of the participants today some of the information that we're going to be talking about, how to sign up for the latest funding opportunities and which geographic footprints that you want, things like that, as well as a high recommendation for a webinar next week that the EPA is putting out on all the funding opportunities for the Clean School Bus program that we'll talk a little bit about towards the end of today's program as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to make some introduction. Before I do that, Rachel, Jenna, thank you very much for all the work in putting this together and getting such a fine group of folks here today. And if I have forgotten anything in the housekeeping, please interrupt me and let me know. But we'll go ahead and get started then with saying hello to my two good buddies, Eddie Waldrop and Monty McLeod. Eddie Waldrop is with Blossman Gas, and he takes care of all the company's assets. We're talking about these things that move down the road, moving our fuel and everything going to those places, as well as Monty McLeod, who does that Autogas sales thing and actually does it quite well. So I picked these two because I wanted to show representation of these funding opportunities, not just for our own use in our own industry fleets, but also what we can do for others outside the commercial and the public and all of those. So without further ado, we at PERC are able to send out these funding opportunity announcements if you'll sign up, and we'll show you how to sign up here in a bit. And with those announcements, you can decide to act on them for those that are applicable for your own fleet. Some of them are applicable just for school buses or just for municipalities or just for whatever kind of market segment. Some of them are a little bit more broad in their scope that allow multiple types of fleets to participate. Some of them are geared up just for certain weight classes of vehicles, and some of them are just for certain fuel types. And we'll go a little bit into this, but let's do some examples here. And I'm gonna pick on Eddie first, and I am gonna go fishing for a compliment here. So Eddie, it was, I think it was last fall, but before I do that, give us a rundown real quick on the vehicle assets that you manage at Blossman and what you're trying to accomplish there. Give us some of those stats and let people know, how really important you really are.
Thank you, Steve. And again, I want to do a shout out to you and your group at PERC for helping me with this grant opportunity. Without the information from you and PERC, I would not have been able to even apply for the grant. I appreciate that. So Blossman Gas, I roughly have 750 fleet assets. Roughly about 65% of those are operating on Autogas. We pride ourselves at Blossman Gas in trying to move everything to Autogas as much as possible. We're running on our fuel, and also the savings opportunity, huge saving opportunities as well. And within that class of vehicles, roughly about 110 of those are Class 7 trucks that deliver our fuel for us in the bobtails.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Let's do an introduction with Monty so people know what's going to come after I pick on Eddie for a bit. What is this? Monty is at Thompson Gas, and you're doing Autogas. What does that look like?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, we had an acquisition that had a pretty big Autogas component to it, and really did not internally have a single person to sort of lead that charge. So I came in about a year and a half ago, and was able to put together a couple of programs in North Carolina, and then since then we've been able to start Thompson Autogas, a new division, and really attack that market, both going after customers and then looking internally as well. So we're on our way with that. We've got about 15% of our assets right now that are running on Autogas, and we're moving in that direction just as quickly as we can. We all know the problems with supply chain and purchasing vehicles right now. So it's a little tricky sometimes, but that's the path that our management wants to take, and it's my job to sort of get us there. So that's what I do.
Terrific. And we're going to talk about some of those obstacles, even within the framework of some of the grants that you folks were able to get. So, Rachel, let's go on to the next slide and take a look at what these FOAs look like, these funding opportunity announcements. And I don't expect you to be able to read these, but it comes in an email from us, and it'll have a short description, but then it'll have a PDF attachment that looks something like this. And these will have all the particulars, the highlights of the grant application, and it'll point you to a link that will allow you to find out more, because usually these are more than one-page documents. They have a lot more criteria in it, but these are just the highlights to kind of whet your appetite and see if you qualify, or the application that you're hoping to get in qualifies. So we'll go on to the next slide here, and we're going to give an example of what Eddie took advantage of. Now, Eddie, Blossman's in multiple states. I don't even remember how many it is now, but you certainly cover South Carolina. And in South Carolina, there was this opportunity. So tell us a story about how all this came about.
So again, thank you to your group there, Steve, who clued me into this opportunity. And so what we did, we applied through with help from Ben Kessler at Palmetto Clean Fuels Coalition. So once we applied, and then the application we had a lot of help from Ben in filling out the application. Wasn't that hard, but with his help, we went through it pretty easily. Once we submitted that, what we had submitted was 5 chassis. We were going to remove 5 chassis, 5 diesel chassis.
Okay, so let me back up just a little bit on this funding announcement. Some of the criteria, the eligible entities down here. I mean, this is a wide open one. You've got public, you've got private entities like yourself, universities, organizations. I mean, this one was about as open as you could possibly get. But this one was coming from DERA, the Diesel Emission Reduction Act. So they're all about, and you got to keep in mind what goals they have so that your application fits meeting their goals. And so they wanted to do class 5 through 8. So these are the, kind of the in our industry, these would be, the service trucks that are setting tanks all the way up through our bobtails for making these. And they have a wide variety of eligible entities as well as applications. So clearly it was, you're delivering fuel, met all of that criteria. And so exactly how much money were you asking for, and how much was eligible in these 5 vehicles?
So as you see here, the funding opportunity was just south of $300,000. I was asking, so let's back up just a minute. So in this grant opportunity, they have what they deem as cost sharing. And so the grant that we applied for, they were going to do 25% cost sharing, and the company that was awarded the grant was going to do 75%. So what that meant was I was going to fund 75% of the purchase of the chassis, and then the grant was going to fund the other 25%. So we initially presented 5. We were awarded with 3 chassis, which ended up being almost $50,000, Steve, is what we were awarded through this grant.
So you're buying me lunch next time I'm up your way then, right?
Say that again?
So you're buying me lunch next time I'm up your way.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. And again, we applied for that. It was a quick turnaround as far as being awarded. It was probably within 3 weeks once we applied that we found out that the grant was awarded to us. And then from there, it was a process that I've never been awarded a grant before, so didn't really know what the process was. There was some turnover. Ben had migrated to move to a different position. And so there was some.
Ben, just to remind everybody, Ben Kessler was the Clean City Coordinator in the area that you were making this application. And I can't speak highly enough of the 90-some Clean City coalitions that are across these United States. And the Ben Kesslers of the world have their finger on the pulse of these funding opportunities that are applicable in their geographic areas of responsibility. And so, leaning into them like you did is extremely helpful because they're very knowledgeable about where the money's coming from and what they need to know in the goals of the application. So yeah, very kudos to Ben for his help on that. So so once you got the application in, what happened after that?
So once the application went in, we were awarded the grant, and then from there, it kind of sat dormant for quite some time. The paperwork sat dormant, and I with some help from you, Steve, we got things moving forward, and I actually signed the application probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. Once I signed that, I found out what the reporting was going to entail, which is not bad. I mean, we do a simple spreadsheet once a quarter, We turn that into South Carolina, and they take it from there. I will make note that funding will come in quarters. So once I submit the information, we will be funded 25% of the grant over the next 4 quarters that we have, and then at the end, the total amount will be given to us. So they'll give us 25% or so over the next 4 quarters, and then they hold 10% back. And then once the reporting is complete, they will fund the final 10%. So I look forward to it. The process seems very forthcoming, very easy. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Now, if this was, a local one for South Carolina, this required a scrappage in this particular grant application too. So what are they looking for in this scrappage language that they use?
Glad you mentioned that, Steve. So that is correct. So in this grant in particular, the diesel chassis that we had identified, we were removing from the fleet. We turn that in with the VIN numbers, and they call that scrappage. So what we will have to do is, once we take those vehicles out of service, we will have to drill a 3-inch hole into the side of the block, take pictures of that. We have to cut the frame in half, take pictures of that, and basically render the vehicle unusable.
That's the chassis portion of that. Now, in your case, you're doing a bobtail, so you can take the body portion of that, because you're just replacing chassis. You're going to put the body on the next chassis. Isn't that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
in this type of grant application, that's why you were only applying for the chassis. Just so that folks, here in our audience understand, there's other funding opportunities, and all these things are different, but that allow you to get 25%, or I've even seen some, especially out in California, where they do 50% of the entire vehicle, including the body. So, on a $160,000 bobtail, it's $80,000 worth. I mean, sometimes those windows open. Now, speaking of those windows, from the time you heard about it to the time the application was due, do you remember about how long that was?
Yes. So it was about a week and a half, Steve, to be honest with you. From the time I found out about it until the window closed, which means the application had to be turned in, it's about a week and a half, if I'm not mistaken. It was really quick.
It's a very short turnaround. Some of these, this was a 30-day window. Okay. And so by the time we got it in your hands and everything else to get it started, you had less than 2 weeks to make it all good. Some of these windows are 60 days, but they're not very long at all. So, having something ready now so that you can apply is real helpful. Well, very, very good. Let's we're going to come back to you, Eddie, on a couple of things, but let's take a peek at for the next slide. I think we have the bottom portion of this application, Rachel. So this gives you an idea of the project types that will be funded, and the scrappage requirements and the model years of those things. All of these details are highlighted in these forwards, these funding opportunity announcements. And so you can kind of quickly see, just by looking at a one sheet, whether or not something that you have in mind will qualify. Okay, so let's go back up to that slide number 2, and we'll show the AFIG one. Hey, Monty, what is AFIG, and what kind of announcement is this, and what did you guys do?
So AFIG is through the state of Pennsylvania, and it's the Alternative Fuels Incentive Grant, is what that stands for. And in this one, so DERA is more of a federal grant. This is a state grant. through the state of Pennsylvania. So the requirements are a little bit different. When we did the Pennsylvania grant, we were working with a customer that was in the delivery business, on converting their fleets. And then we also, in this case, could apply for infrastructure as well. So we were able to, in this one, get about $280,000 for the conversion of fleet vehicles, and then $159,000 for infrastructure for 2 locations. And this one is different than a lot I've seen, because on the conversion side, it was there was no cost share. They were paying it 100%. On the infrastructure side, it was a 50% cost share. So
okay, so let's take a peek at that. All right, so when you
Sure.
say conversion, were these gasoline vehicles that were getting a conversion system added to existing fleet, or were these, when you say conversion, were these new vehicles that were being added?
These are existing vehicles that were in their fleet, that were gasoline, that they are converting to a biofuel propane system.
Okay. And the reason why I was fishing for that, I knew the answer. I just wanted everybody to hear is some grant applications will restrict this to monofuel systems. And so you have to kind of know what you're looking for. Some of them allow for biofuel systems and to do this. So both of those are out there. And you have to look for it. So in knowing this, you don't have to wait like Eddie does for a new chassis, especially with these supply chain issues. You can execute this a little more immediate in making that good. So now, and this one also included, the refueling infrastructure. So you said the cost share was 100%. So, whatever it's going to take to add this biofuel system on is covered. So, fleets that are accepting this partnership with you to make this happen have a low risk in making that good as far as financial risk. But what does it look like for the infrastructure? What did you have to put in the application to make the folks over at AFIG say, oh man, we want to work with Monty and his Autogas prospects to make this work?
Well, on the infrastructure side, there are a lot of ways to provide cost share. I mean, it doesn't have to be a dollar figure. It can be in kind. It can be, we're going to provide tanks that we own, and the value of these tanks is X, and that could be part there. I mean, there are a number of ways that you can work out what the cost share is, but a lot of what they were looking for is, have you ever done this before? Or do you have any experience in it? Is this going to happen? If we give you the funding, are you really going to be able to make this happen? And we were able to prove that we had done it in the past, and that we had the expertise and the technology, and through our partners, our vendor partners, that we could put this together quickly. And they're frankly, they're looking for, they being anybody who's issuing a grant, is looking for good shovel ready is the term projects. So we had this one going. We've worked with this particular company in other parts of the country, and we had spoken. I mean, I didn't just see the thing from you and say, who can I do? I mean, we already had things in queue lined up. Okay, so, and I think that we'll get to that in a bit, but that's kind of part of the process, right? You can't just see this unless you're doing it with your own fleet. You can't just see these pop up and say, yeah, that's something I want to do. It takes some time and effort and work to gather all the pieces together. So
what was the window for this one that you had to work in?
On this particular one, we had, I think by the time we got involved with it, and I got my grant writer to get started on it, I think we had around 30 to 45 days to get the application in. And then from there, once the application was in, and I think that was on the December 17th is when I think we turned this one in. We've done a couple, so, but I think it was the 17th, and we found out in February that we had been awarded. So
Great.
it was about 60 days roughly.
Now, for those of you who are looking at this, and Rachel, thank you for zooming in on that one. AFIG in Pennsylvania has 2 phases. They do a first phase, and they have a due date for that. And then they assess what they were able to award and so forth, and money's left over. And they have some designated for phase 2, but money's left over. That way they can maximize all of this. And if you miss the first one, you have an opportunity in phase 2 to be able to do this. Now, AFIG is typically an annual kind of thing. So, we get to kind of plan ahead on this because they usually offer the first phase in the spring. As you get a little bit more familiar with these announcements and how they come out, you can say, okay, I know when DERA is going to come out on the federal, and then some of that DERA translates into states like Eddie was able to take advantage of in South Carolina. But you were able to catch that second phase of AFIG and make it good. So now the project types here. I don't want you to name names, customers on this. We're picking on Eddie because we already know him. But what areas of fleets were these in? Were they agricultural or beverage, food, or something like that? What kind of a fleet were these?
Delivery. They were delivery.
Okay, sweet. Where they're using a lot more fuel and displacing
right,
a lot.
They're running a route and they go every day, and it's a very set. I mean, it's a very specific. You can count on it. This is what it's going to be, pretty much every year. And these are really. This was a really good look for Pennsylvania because it's a high profile company, and they're traveling around. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to do some PR with this too. So, and that's the other thing they're looking for. And one thing, Steve, just to point out, since we got this slide up, I told you we got $439,000 and it said maximum project funding 300,000. That's why we split it up into 2. So the maximum applicant funding is 600,000. If we'd have done it all under one project, we'd only gotten 3. And you really got to read the fine print and know how to work. Well, not say work the system, but I mean, you got to know how to work within the application, and you kind of get a feel for it after a while.
Sure. Okay, well, let's take a look at this. You had already been working with this group, so they already knew that they wanted to do more Autogas, and so you were able to take this funding opportunity and overlay it on existing objectives that they already have, which is pretty much the way most of these have to go because the windows are so tight on making this happen. You don't have time to introduce someone for the first time to Autogas and get them on board in such a short window. And to your point earlier, the folks that are awarding this money, they have certain goals. Here, they want to displace emissions, okay? And they want to make that happen by reducing the amount of gasoline and diesel that's going in their geographic areas, and they want to clean up the environment. So they're making this investment in doing it. So when you have a fleet that has high fuel usage, you're going to score better than you are with someone who's only driving a couple miles a day. So it's not just will you be able to get the project done? That's certainly foremost. But how much are you going to be able to help clean up, the fine state of Pennsylvania in their case? So the more you can put that and weave it into achieving their goals in disbursement of this funds, the higher you're going to score in the awards. Okay, so just to be clear, in the state of Pennsylvania, you guys and your fleet partners were able to get how much?
It's like 439,000.
Okay.
something like
getting
that.
upward about $500,000. Okay. I think it was worth the postage stamp that went to you with this this faux announcement. All right. Yeah. I'm there with you. Okay. So you have another one too. We don't have the state of Maryland's FOA up here, but tell us what went on in Maryland.
So, as you were alluding to earlier, in this case, we had worked with this particular customer in Pennsylvania for quite a bit of time, and they were very familiar with it and already. Oh, there it is. And you got a good team, and had already been involved in Autogas projects, so they were very familiar with it. In this case, and this kind of shows the other side of the coin. In this case, we brought in a partner that we had really just introduced to the idea. They were running a diesel fleet that they were leasing, and just were introducing the idea of Autogas to them and where it could save them money, and they had sustainability goals, and it was really a good fit. We just didn't have time because this one was very quick. We just didn't have time to dive deep enough and get the buy-in that I wish we could have gotten from them. So we did do a program here in Maryland with a customer, and it was beverage delivery there, and so it was for 20 vehicles. Now this one, we could not do conversions. This had to be new, and it had to be monofuel. So with that, we worked with Roush Clean Tech, and I worked with Natalia over at Roush. She helped me to write the narrative for this one. They also did the A-Fleet stuff for us. There's a whole new piece to these things that I've been doing these for years and years and years, since 2008 or 10 or something like that. But now you have a whole new level that's called environmental justice. So now you have to look also at where these things are going. This particular one was going to go in Baltimore, into a very low income area. So that played into the application as well. You know, the socioeconomic status of the people in this area was very low, and that gave us more points. That makes sense? I mean, the way that works. And so that was a piece of it that a lot of their applicants, they told us this, a lot of their applicants miss because you don't know where to find it, or you don't know how to figure that out. And there's a place you can go. It says in the application where you can go to get this information. So, but we were awarded, the customer was awarded $470,000 to do their 20 vehicles. They had a major internal project going on with their operation. They were doing a $40 million upfit on their operation, and they weren't large, and they just couldn't devote the personnel to it, so they just declined. And
after
then
the award and all of this work was already done.
Yeah.
Okay,
now, they had alluded to that sort of at the 11th hour, and I said, we've already done the work. Let us at least go. Let us follow through with it, and then if you're awarded, we can move forward. And so they still believe that Autogas is the great way to go, and they still will do this, just not now and not with this funding. So there was a round two, as you said, with Pennsylvania. There was a round two. The money kind of goes back in. I reached out to the now this is not a Clean Cities, this is a state of Maryland person, and so we reapplied for ourselves, just like Eddie did down in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And turned that in on Monday, and I think we're in pretty good shape on that, to be able to use that internally.
There was an audible for a substitution, if you will, to kind of fill in the gap, and which, these agencies that are doing this funding, they really hate to see people back out. You mentioned that at the very beginning. You want to make sure you can follow through in this project and everything else, but they know this kind of stuff happens. And so when we can come in and do something else to fill in that gap, that's a load off of them, because they're trying to get these funds dispersed. They've been able to allocate these funds, and then they want to allocate them to those who are going to do these projects, so they can meet their emission goals. And that's what this is all about.
This particular one, now the one in Pennsylvania was more about displacing gallons. This one was very specific in things like NOx. I mean, it was really geared towards getting diesel off the road. So it worked really well with the partner we were working with, and so and the other thing is, you've got to build a relationship with whomever is issuing the funding. They need to know you and know who you are, and so I try to build those relationships before there's any funding available, and talk to them and see what they're looking for, and make yourself known. And
it's not just a black and white issue. It's not just something on a piece of paper. There's always people behind this. And in Eddie's case, I want to ask him a question about, not to name names, Eddie. Okay, we're not going to do that. But some of the people behind this, it went silent, radio silent for a while, and you were wondering what was going on. What were some of the obstacles that you ran into with this, other than having to do this in a week and a half? What are some of the obstacles you ran into, and how would you do it differently next time?
So the initial person that I was communicating with had transitioned, so I didn't have a point of contact to find out what the next steps were after we were awarded the grant. And so several emails, several follow-ups, and then got you back involved to help me reach out to some folks there in South Carolina. And what had happened was the grant it wasn't stalled. I'm not going to say that. It was the paperwork was on someone's desk in the finance department, I believe, waiting to be signed off on. And once that happened, it was sent to me. We signed it and got it back into the proper hands. So that's what happened. It was laying on someone's desk and just awaiting for some signatures from the finance side.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, very good, very good. Now you're in other states, so you're going to get. As a matter of fact, Rachel, if you don't mind forwarding to slide number 5, how to register for these. We'll keep this one up there for a little bit, so that people know what we're talking about. If you want to receive these announcements, these FOAs, go ahead and get this link. And if you can't, click on it, and get it going right now. I think it's going to be in the chat. So if you look in your chat, you can go ahead and click on that now, so you have it in your web browser. Stick with us. We got a little bit more to cover, but you can go ahead and get signed up, and then you'll be able to list. If you're doing national, I think like Monty wants to know everything that's going on in every state, basically. And if you're in Eddie's, where he's got a certain number of states that he wants to see, or if you're just in one state, hey, I don't want to see all of these emails come in from PERC. I just want the ones that are going to be in my geographic footprint, which is the state of whatever it is. You can sign up that way, and make that happen. So let's tackle a few of the questions. I see several things in the chat, but I'm going to the Q&A portion of this. And well, I'm at a little bit of a loss on this particular language that's showing up there.
Yeah, Steve, there is a question in the chat box, and it's about the quarterly distribution. Is the format typical for these kinds of grants?
Oh, the payouts. Yeah. Now Eddie described the payout that he has, how that's going to go, and these are all going to be different. Monty, give us a clue on what it looks like with the awards that you're getting for some fleets in Pennsylvania, and then the one in Maryland. Have you gotten the contract signed on these things yet? And so, do you know what kind of funding reimbursement that you're going to get?
Yes. So in Pennsylvania, we have the contract for both pieces of the grant, and I mean, it's a straight reimbursement. So we basically take the invoice that we have gotten from our vendor and pay that, show that it's paid, turn that in. There's a certain format that you do that with, and then they issue the funds back to us through an ACH account
So it's
within 14 days.
100% one-time deal.
No, it's ongoing. I mean, if you don't have to wait until you're finished, we can do it
Okay.
in blocks.
Okay. Very good.
So, as vehicles get converted, or if we finish, one of the infrastructure projects before the other, then that's fine. We can just turn it in as we go. And then on our cost share portion, we keep track of all kinds of things for that. I mean, we keep track of people's time, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's how you do it.
Okay. All right. And then in Maryland, when you're for the one that you've kind of did an audible, did a pivot, and made it for your own fleet, those are going to be replacement vehicles, correct? And so you are going to be waiting on chassis for that. Is that going to be a one single kind of transaction per chassis as they come in, or is it kind of like Eddie's, where they're going to do a quarterly disbursement on that?
No, it won't be a quarterly. We can actually do it in blocks as soon as the VIN numbers are issued and the invoices are presented to us, and we pay them. It's a reimbursement again. So as soon as we have paid invoices, we turn those in, and then they do reimbursement until the funds are gone.
Very good. Very good.
The beauty of a lot of these is that, for example, if it's and I've done this in the past, if it's a $2 million total disbursement, and somebody doesn't use all of their money, there are opportunities sometimes, if you've got a little bit more you can do, to take a second bite of the apple. And I'm trying not to give away all of my secrets here, Steve, but I'm trying to be helpful.
Sure. And this goes to your point about having a relationship with the entity that's awarding these funds, and staying in touch. So if you can be of help to them to exercise, a little bit, grow your project a little bit so that they can get rid of, more of the funds that they had, you can make it all happen. Okay. Is it mandatory to work with a Clean City Coalition to get the grant? Okay. Now, if the grantor is the Clean Cities, sometimes the DOE has the Clean Cities named as those who are going to be in charge of it. Yes, it is. But in these cases, AFIG and in the state of Maryland, they were just assisting. Isn't that right? From both of you?
I didn't deal with Clean Cities in either case, in Maryland or Pennsylvania. I dealt directly with the state on both of those. But most other ones that I've done, DERA in particular is a federal grant that's done through the states, typically through Clean Cities. That's one that you have to work with them on. But if you can find a state that you can work with, they're a lot less stringent on the side. I mean, we don't have any scrappage in these like you do with the DERA program. So that's helpful.
Okay, very, very good. I have another question from a school bus operator in Southern Illinois who has pretty much bought all of their propane buses over the last 10 years and without grants. We have a fleet of 17 buses and 9 are propane. My school board is starting to waiver and has bought 3 gasoline buses. As a side note, I bet they're regretting that with the fuel prices we've seen the last few months. But nonetheless, I want to go 100% propane. How would you get funding to offset the cost differential to replace the existing propane buses? Because propane buses are going to be a little bit more than the gasoline versions of that. The way the Fed, EPA, and others has operated in the past is to give funding to urban areas and only to replace diesel buses. Now that they are branching out into rural areas, our area, they're still wanting only to replace diesels, which is understandable, but I want to keep the first fleet in propane buses instead of going backwards. Okay, well, this is a great lead in to the next slide, which is also going to talk about next week. The EPA is hosting the Clean School Bus Program Informational Webinar. Now, what this is, if you haven't heard about the infrastructure bill that now has been signed into law, the infrastructure has, for school buses, carved out $5 billion over the next 5 years. So it's $1 billion a year. 2.5 billion of that goes to electric school buses, and 2.5 billion of it goes to clean school buses, of which it would be, compressed natural gas or fuel cell or LNG or propane. Basically, it's going to be propane. Propane is the preferred, of all of those. So, and a lot of the school bus manufacturers don't even make anything other than propane. There might be, a little bit of these, but we are in a very good position to exercise $500 million a year for funding propane powered school buses. And that's going to be nationwide. So Southern Illinois, you're going to be part of that. So I would definitely register and sign up for that webinar on April 27th, because I believe they're going to give the guidance during that webinar. And that guidance will include, like what Eddie and Monty have both talked about, the cost share amount of that propane vehicle, which I think is going to be substantial and more than cover that incremental cost from the gasoline school bus to the propane bus for you out in Southern Illinois for your question. But sign up for that and make sure that you listen in. PERC is going to have a tremendous amount of information as soon as we find out if scrappage is going to be part of the guidance, what the cost share amount is going to be for the propane side of these buses. And all of those details, we'll have that at our website. We're going to have a landing page, at propane.com that's going to be specific to the EPA's Clean School Bus Program funding opportunity. So hear it straight from the horse's mouth, if you will, by jumping in on this particular webinar and being part of it, and stay close to propane.com for more information on that as well. Let's see if there was any other questions. Monty and Eddie, what things did we leave out that we haven't talked about yet?
For the school bus people, I don't know if Illinois has used up all their VW funding. That may be an opportunity for them as well. I would look anywhere and everywhere. I would get in touch with Bluebird, Roush, your local propane provider. Get some help. You're not in this alone, and everybody wants to help you. So let us help you.
Yeah, we can certainly point you in the right direction if you're not familiar and don't have a relationship with your Clean City coordinator for your particular area. All right. Also seeing that to everyone, a copy of the recorded presentation. Thank you very much, Jenna. And we suggest all to act with caution before clicking on links from unverified sources. Always good idea. Thank you very much. So, all
Steve,
right.
there was one other question that came through in the chat, just
I
asking
didn't
what
see-
propane engines both Eddie and Monty were using.
Oh, okay. What engines
Oh.
were you using in yours, Eddie? Let's start with your what kind, whose chassis were you getting, and what engine was in it?
So I'm acquiring the Ford chassis, and it will have the 7.3 V8 engine in that chassis.
And this will be the Ford model
750.
750, right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
That full 33,000 GVW. By the way, what barrel size are you using with that 7.3? What are you comfortable doing?
All the way up to a 3,000 gallon barrel. All my chassis are fitted from a 26 all the way up to a 3,000.
Okay, very good, very good. Monty, what engines are you using in yours for? What are the conversions? Let's start with the AFIC conversions. What do they have now that's being converted to propane with a biofuel system?
There are a few different ones. There are the Isuzu MPRs, which are most of that fleet. But there are also a few of the Ford E-Series cutaways in a box configuration. So we got some E350s, E450s with the 6.2. I think some of the 450s might have 7.3 also. And then for our own vehicles, we just ordered and we'll be using in Maryland the same chassis, the Ford F750 in the 33,000 pound configuration with the 7.3, and we're also doing 3,000 gallon barrels on those.
Sure thing, sure thing. Very good. In addition, for those of you propane marketers in the audience that want to get a little bit deeper on an Autogas update for all the markets, you can join Eddie and I in Nashville at the National Propane Gas Association's Southeastern Conference. Monty, when are we doing something next with you? What's happening?
We're doing I'm doing something with Roush, I think it's for PERC, Roush and Derek Whaley on Monday in Nashville at 9 a.m.
That's right. I did see that session.
Yep.
So you'll be talking more about what you can do in your own fleet. Yep. as a propane marketer to use the fuel that we love so much.
Absolutely. And we will have one of our F750 bobtails at the show on the showroom floor as well. Yeah, yes. In the Roush booth. So
all right,
come by and see us.
Stop by and see us too. All right. I think if we don't have Rachel, do we have any other questions in there?
No, that was everything you covered.
Okay. Well, hey, I really want to thank Eddie and Monty for taking the time to join us today and sharing a little bit of their secret sauce in making this. Because combined, we're talking about almost $1 million with just 2 organizations capitalizing on some of this that's out there. So there's a whole lot more opportunity out there. So again, register for the FOA announcements. You're going to get an email from us with that link to be able to make that happen. Put down the states that you want to get announcements for. And it's I know that's a word that we probably get tired of hearing, but it's an unprecedented amount of money that's going into school buses. $500 million a year. If these things get funded like Volkswagen, that's going to turn into about 10,000 school buses nationwide that are going to get added each year. So it can be a great opportunity. And there's a school district in everybody's footprint. Okay, so no one is excluded from this. And also in markets like the paratransit And I know, Monty's real familiar with this one. There's a lot of money in the infrastructure bill for those too. You can take a look at those paratransit organizations near you at propane.com. We have a tool that identifies those paratransits in your footprint and what vehicles they have. Tremendous amount of opportunity. So if you need anything from us, reach out and make it happen. Monty, Eddie, thanks again. We'll go ahead and sign off here and say thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Steve.
y'all being with us today.